Broadcasting from an undisclosed location deep in the hills of Middle Tennessee, it's The Tony Vanek Show. Welcome to Roundtable Discussions. This is the Tony Vanek Show. Today, I've got some amazing guests that are joining me this afternoon, and I'm going to just introduce them quickly, and then we'll get right into the discussion. I think you're going to enjoy this. There's going to be just an incredible amount of information that job seekers and recruiters alike will be able to use to be more successful in their job and in their job search. So first we have Theda Johnson, and she's a 15-year HR and talent acquisition professional. Her experiences include small, medium, and large team leadership, human resources, talent program and project management, frontline metric-based recruitment, specialty recruitment in the areas of diversity, multilingual, military job seekers, and events coordination. Most recently, she developed, implemented, and executed grassroots military recruitment strategies on the national level for 2 Fortune 50 companies and 1 Fortune 1000. She continues her passion in supporting, mentoring, and coaching military community and other diverse job seekers in her current role. Then next, we have Corey Burton. And Corey and her family, they live outside D.C., enjoy visiting the nearby monuments, spending time on the Chesapeake Bay. Corey's family is Herb Thompson, a retired Green Beret turned program manager at a large tech company with 4 dynamic teenagers and 2 dogs, so they've got their hands full. Throughout her 20-year career, Corey has been driven by an ability to help people. She enjoys complex challenges, is successful delivering impactful results. She's worked as a growth strategist across talent acquisition, comprehensive human resource programs, people experiences, human capital management, branding and marketing initiatives. She also enjoys helping companies increase profitability through automation and workforce management solutions through implementation of new systems and system maximization. So she's got a really strong background, and we look forward to hearing from her. And then last but not least, we have Lindsay Helm, and Lindsay will be joining us a little bit later in the podcast. But she's a former information technology specialist in the United States Army. Shortly after leaving the Army and working in corporate America for companies such as Amazon, Intuit, and the DoD, she realized a gap in education and retention for employers hiring within the military community. She launched Empower Employ, a company focused on supporting the economic impact of veterans and military spouses through corporate education and technology. So we've got a wonderful panel for you today. I hope you enjoy it. So let's get right into it. All right. Well, I thank you both for taking the time to pop in and join me on this little roundtable adventure. So we have Corey and Theda, and waiting on, hopefully Lindsay will join us here in a little bit. But we started talking earlier before we got into actually recording the roundtable about some tips for applicants when they're dealing with recruiters on resume building, when to apply, timing, things like that. So Theda, if you could pick up on what you were just telling me about on some of how crucial the timing is, and then Corey, I want you to kind of reiterate what you were saying about the child's game, because I thought that was brilliant. So go ahead, Theda. I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. We were just talking about, the obstacles in putting applications out there, and why there's some frustration around, you feel like you're not being looked at or get automatically rejected without feeling like a recruiter has even looked at you, and really, especially now, given the last 8 months in across industries and across just the workforce and the big giants out there, and even the littler companies, it's really even more so a game of timing. I used to say before the last year or so, the first 30 days was imperative for you to be applying for roles. Now it's even shorter time frames because we have such an influx of qualified and sometimes overqualified talent that apply for our roles. And recruiters are now having to pull down jobs after just a week of being posted because there's 2,800 plus candidates in it. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
really an essence of timing and making sure that you're checking the job boards and the LinkedIn's daily, for when those things are posted, and applying immediately with a targeted resume. And there are some other things that you can do to kind of help yourself stand out, but we can talk about that a little bit later.
Okay. And Corey, you were making an analogy of the match the card child's game. If you can kind of bring that back up.
Way here of to piggyback on what Theda just shared about the timing. One of the most common mistakes I feel is that people will just go out and do these blind, applications, and that minimizes your opportunity to get in front of, the appropriate people making the decision. So with that said, that's actually a great opportunity in a way because there are so many applicants that are hitting these jobs. It's a great way to be able to drop a line to a recruiter or to someone at the organization, introduce yourself by saying what role you've identified that you're interested in, let them know that you've applied, and ask them where that role is in the process. So that way it gives them something identifiable to actually respond to you about. And then the other component of what we previously discussed that you mentioned was targeting your resume in a way that's specific to each role. I personally am in the job search process myself right now, so I know what a butt pain it is, but it's a necessary evil. And you have to match exactly what you're reading on the job requisite as though it's the child game match. If you flip over a card where you see the red apple, if you flip over another card and you see a green apple or a yellow apple, it's not a match. It has to be a red apple. Because what people often don't realize is as recruiters, you're the first stop in the process. We may be able to find relevance or direct correlation, but when it's passed forward to hiring managers that are next in the process for whether or not people move forward, then it is not always seen as relevant to that specific role because they know the role, what they need, and they don't see that on the paper, and they don't think transferable. They just see it's not there. So that's my recommendation is just take the time to just go through each component and make sure it's all in that resume, and then also reach out to whomever you can within the company to check on the validity of the posting.
Right. Hey, Lindsay. I see you. You muted yourself. I don't know what that loud noise was. Was that on your end?
Yeah, that was my fault. I apologize. Corey asked me and I responded late, like, I'm coming, I swear. Time zone's hard. I was tracking this in like 40 minutes, but it's fine. I'm here. I live in Hawaii and Central Time Zone. All the time zones mess with me.
Right. Like okay. Rubbing in. You're in Hawaii, rubbing in. I'm in Middle Tennessee and it was freezing this morning. Just absolutely. I hate the cold. I've lived in Florida. I've lived in Texas. I'm from Eastern Pennsylvania originally. And I settled here in Tennessee and I love it here, but I hate the cold. I'm not a cold person. And I live out in the middle of nowhere. It's beautiful, but it's cold.
Yeah, I was chuckling because we just had this conversation this morning. Myself and 4 others live in Hawaii, and we do an entrepreneurial training program that I lead every Friday morning. And it's a whopping, for the rest of you, I'm sorry that I'm going to say this, but I'm sitting here in a blanket. There's a jacket behind me. It is 66 degrees. I'm friggin' freezing. My toes are cold. My hands are cold. Like, I'm miserable right now. So I can't imagine what it's like for the rest of the world.
So we got started without you, and we've kind of covered a little bit of ground. We were talking about kind of the volatility of timing when it comes to applying for these positions as they come up. because there's so many, the seems like the job market is just flooded with applicants because of all the layoffs and the downsizing in the tech world. That's kind of where I am. I'm in that as well. But what I wanted to do was just put this little thing together to kind of give people a little sense of direction, give them a little bit of hope, and kind of help them direct their efforts, because I know sometimes you can get so bogged down in looking at
That wasn't me this time.
looking at what's right in front of you, like, oh my gosh, I've got X amount of bills that are coming due and I've got no income, and you can get overwhelmed, and then you start applying for all these positions, kind of using the shotgun approach, and then not getting the results that you were expecting. Like I was telling the other ladies earlier that I've been in the workforce for a long time, and I've pretty much run the gamut of positions and industries and career paths and things like that. I joked and said if I actually wrote out my resume accurately, it would read like a adventure novel and be just as thick. But but that doesn't do me any good in the job market, because nobody wants to sit down and read a novel. They want to see, like Corey was saying, a red apple is a red apple, and it takes a little bit of effort. And it takes a lot of effort to try to peel back all the layers and find out what is important and what are they looking for. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring you all on and get an expert view on what you're looking for, what you see, and some mistakes that people are making that they could easily correct. Whether it's you've got some room on your credit card, go get a professional resume writer to do your resume. You know, I'm just throwing ideas out there. I saw some faces like, no, don't do that. But yeah, because I mean, a lot of people, it's hard to talk about yourself, and it's hard to see experience that you may have that you're not thinking about. But if you sit down and talk to somebody and just verbalize your experience, they can pull those little nuggets out and say, here's a keyword. Here's a keyword. So I'll let you kind of take it from there, Lindsay, and kind of give us a little bit of what you're seeing in the marketplace and advice that you would give to somebody that is out there and they say, hey, what can I do? This is what I'm doing. What else can I do?
So I think the advice coming from me, we'll start with what I'm seeing. So I just talked to a very senior leader at Uber this morning about kind of their hiring, and I work with a lot of employers with kind of our company here. And what I'm hearing is we're hiring, or we're hiring and what their hiring looks like is that everyone is trying to figure out what the market, government, labor, what that looks like. Therefore, because everything is so up in the air, no one's really officially hiring. They've got the net cast and they're planning ahead. It's kind of the same here at our company. Like even as a small business, I want to hire somebody and bring them in to work as a project manager, but are we going to have the revenue to sustain that role? And the answer for my company flat out is no. Right. Now, can I project that I'm going to have that revenue? No, but as a leader, it's on me to be honest with the people that I'm talking to and say, hey, and as a recruiter, even, I mean, just depending on just honest conversations are apply, interview, and be patient. A lot of these hiring cycles are not going to start until March or April. It is January. And you're like, well, what do I do with my time between now and March? Professional development, get a hobby, go to school. And you're like, well, how do I pay my bills? Get side hustles.
Yeah.
We talked about this. I live in Hawaii, and one of my side hustles when I get nervous about being able to pay my executive assistant that we use, I rent my Jeep out on Turo. It pays about $700 a week. So it does.
Yeah,
That Jeep
yeah,
makes like
that's-
$1,000 a week.
I love Turo.
So,
That's
yeah, I
sweet.
love Turo. And so I will go clean my car out with my kid, and when that check comes, I'll deposit it as an owner's equity deposit into our bank account, knowing dang well that I'm planning for that money to be there for her. As a leader, it's on me to make sure that I've secured her job.
Mhm.
As a job seeker, you have to understand that that business can't make a decision without knowing that the money's going to be there, because what's going to happen, as we are seeing across the board,
Yeah.
everyone's projected ahead for, we're going to be loaded and make all this money and it's going to be a great year, and it's a poop year. I mean,
Yeah.
so I think the tips are, for the leadership, plan accordingly and have honest conversations. Don't scare your teams. And if you're hesitant about hiring and you don't have like that money in the bank proverbially, or a check that's for sure coming, or a contract that can be executed, don't cast a wide net for nothing. If your net is cast and you're a recruiter, then tell your candidates, yes, I think you're perfect, but it is going to be a long time and we may not be a fit for you and it's out of my control, rather than saying, yep, I'll have the hiring manager reach out to you next week and blah, blah, blah. And then from the candidate perspective, just patience and continue to, it's not going to not happen. All right. There's a match out there for everyone, but it's a very slow process right now, unless you work for a company that has some sort of like guarantee. And even those companies that do have like a hiring process and guarantee can't really make decisions. So just lots of uncertainty, take your time and be patient. And it sucks. I'm going to get in trouble for it. It sucks.
You're not going to get in trouble. This is, I don't work for anybody. This is my podcast, so you can.
Yeah, well, I mean,
say whatever you wanna
as a
say.
representative of my brand, but being true to who I am as a person, it does suck. There's
Yeah.
no fun in the market right now. It's not gloom and doom. It's just, if you're in a jam and you need to pay a bill, then go become a barista for a little bit. Go
Yeah.
do what you do. You remember when you were in college and those bills were due? Get
Mhm.
creative. And it sucks. And you're like, well, that's not any fun and that's not what I want to do. Well, we're adults and we got to pay bills. So like,
Yeah.
you gotta, get a babysitter.
Welcome to the real world. Yeah. So, but my whole philosophy, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was just so people know that they're not alone. That, hey, everybody's out here. We're hustling. We're struggling. We're experiencing losses. There's some wins. Let's celebrate what we can celebrate, and let's huddle up and put our heads together for when we don't win, and figure it out collectively. What can we do? Because we're all in this together. And my whole thing is everybody wins. If everybody can't win, then it's not worth even going into the game. So one of the things I brought up earlier, and everybody kind of cringed, was resume writers. Now, what are your opinions? Because I'm in process of doing that right now, because I felt like I was just missing something. I'm missing the mark. So I interviewed several different companies, resume writing companies, and found one that really felt like it was a good fit for me, just because they're asking the right questions, and it was in my budget. So I thought, okay, well, this is something I think I'm gonna invest in and see if it. My thing is, if I'm doing the same thing over and over and I'm getting the same result, I think I need to change something. And that was the idea I came up with was, and I talked to other people and they're like, it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. And I'm like, well, if it didn't work for you, maybe you just had the wrong person or the wrong company. So I did my due diligence and researched and talked to several different people. But what are your experiences with that? And we can. I see Thea, she's shaking her head. So let's go to you, because I want to hear the bad news first.
Oh man, I am chomping at the bit at this question. I know, Lindsay.
Yeah, I'll let her go first, but I'll tell you, I think I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth at the same time, because I think it's between the three of us, there's going to be a very interesting blend. So I'll let her go first for sure. But yeah, I'm going to say she's not a bad news person. She's just a straight shooter. So take it away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, bad news, if it's bad news, it doesn't mean like bad news is bad news. I rather hear what I'd rather you tell me what I need to hear than what I want to hear. So let's put it that way.
Well, that I can do. That is a specialty of mine. I will tell you what you need to hear. So here's my thing. Anybody that has military service connection, you should not be paying for a resume ever in your life. You're crazy. There are too many free, good support systems out there to help you. But what I will say about the resume writing is the worst resumes I have seen, grammatically, aesthetically, have come from resume writers.
Wow. Okay.
The other thing about resume writers, resumes are not a one size fit all. Resumes are something that every single person has a different feeling about, has a different opinion about. Same thing with cover letters. I hate cover letters. I think they are pointless. I think they're dumb, but some people really like them.
Yeah.
So what you have to do with resumes is get a lot of different feedback from different recruiters, because those are the people that see these things day in, day out, hundreds of times a day.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to tell you what they like to see. But generally, there's a few rules, right? It's knowing and acknowledging that recruiters and hiring managers spend at maximum 10 seconds scanning your resume, right? So think about that logically. If you're applying for a role, what are the most important things that are basic qualifications or whatever in this role? Put those things on the first page, because that's where they're going to spend the majority of that 10 seconds, right? And just having those kind of common sense, and I know you don't know what you don't know, right? So that's why it's important to get these pieces of feedback, because a technical resume is different than a non-technical, and a DOD is different than a civilian. And so you have to get that just feedback from different recruiters and take the pieces that make sense to you to make your resume. There are tips and tricks that everybody has. I have a couple. I'm happy to share if you'd like, but resume writers, they're one person. They're usually, I don't want to say usually, but some of them have some kind of TA background. Some of them just have a comms background, right? And again, the worst ones that I have seen, and I'm talking like executive level, from a huge company. He was a veteran, had his resume written, and the grammatical errors were insane. Like, it was even called out by my hiring manager.
Oh, and that's unexcusable, because I pride myself on I have a background of being a songwriter when I was in the music industry as an artist. So I'm very much a student of the English language.
Well, with so many recruiters out there willing to rip apart resumes just on their free time, I know I'm one of them. I have a bunch of one-on-ones every week that I just go through resumes with people with. There's no need to go pay for it. There's too many people out there willing to help. There's too many free organizations willing to help, especially for the military community. Well, and even for the non-military community, there's too many things out there that are able to help you. You need to utilize it.
And I can say to back to our original point of tailoring your resume to each role, how many times are you going to pay to get that resume rewritten?
Right.
And something that wizard is going to ask you the same questions that a human's going to ask you, but you know yourself and you have the visibility in front of you to each role to be able to then tailor it hyper specific to that role. And I love what Theda said about, reaching out to the recruiters, having them look at it. I use LinkedIn all the time. If there's a company or an organization that I've identified as potential for myself, I try and meet with at least, 4 or 5 people to try and ask them, hey, if you have any knowledge of this role, would you mind taking a look at my resume and see if you think that would be a good fit? And sometimes they're like, well, I don't really know a lot about the role. I can tell you a lot about the culture. Happy to look at your resume. And I've had some pretty good call outs actually from that about key things that they look for in their company or organization, and taking that information and tailoring it. Lindsay, I think a while back, I even had her peek at mine, and there were a couple little things that I had forgotten because I thought, I guess you, as a recruiter, sometimes you assume that it's all bundled in there, but there might be little specific things that people are looking for. So just having as many eyes on it as possible for the low cost of $0. Typically speaking, recruiters, I'm an ambivert. I'm extroverted by day, introverted by night.
Right.
The most people friendly, and we do not mind to help people if presented in the right way. I mean, I've had people hit me up and say, hey, can you get me a job? No. I can't. But if you hit me up and you're like, hey, here's what I'm trying to pursue, here's the struggles I'm having, would you mind this? Like, define your ask. I'm happy to help, you
Mhm.
know? And I think that goes across most people that I've met in the industry as well. But yeah, I think a resume writer is, a one pop shot. And is it worth it to put all that into it? I've never seen the fruit bear from that. And Lindsay, I know you have some great ideas on this.
Well,
I mean,
I
I do.
wish before you get started, Lindsay, I'm kind of kicking myself in the behind here. I wish I would have. I wish this would have been on Tuesday instead of on Friday, because I probably could have saved myself some money. Um, but it's okay. It'll be a good experiment. And then what I'd love to do, if you're all up to it, is I will send you the resume that I have, and then I'll send you the resume that is created from this resume writer, and then take a look at it and see what the differences are, and if it would have made a difference whether you would have gotten my resume or the updated resume in and I won't tell you which one's which.
And I'll challenge you to go one step further.
Okay.
Pick a role you would really apply for and send that job link with it so that we can look at the relevance specific to that role.
Okay, perfect, yeah. And when I came up with the idea to do this little roundtable, I put out feelers on my page, on some other group pages, and the response, I was a little surprised, was kind of lackluster. And Lindsay jumped in and she was like, "Oh, I know the perfect group of people to get together," and you all jumped in and you're lending your time and your expertise, and I can't thank you enough, because I really think that people will be able to glean some knowledge from this, and the whole purpose is just, we need some hope. We need some hope. We need some feel good stuff, and that's it's kind of why I wanted to do this, but I appreciate it. So, Lindsay, go ahead and throw another bucket of cold water on me.
So, I agree with everything that was said, kind of. However, colon, comma. So I've seen resume writers and coaches. So I feel like resume writers and coaches kind of go hand in hand by accident, right? When you're asking for someone to do a review, you're asking for their time and you're asking them to coach you and kind of give you feedback. So in that regard, for the feedback part and for my time, if it is more than like a one-time 15-minute situation where you send me, for example, your resume via Google Drive, it doesn't require me to do anything but put my eyes on it, insert comment, remove, delete. This is crazy. Oh my God, what is this? What is PI? What is this acronym? I can't deal with this. Why is this here? It's a strategic volunteer experience. Why do we have this here? What is this? If it's not that, and it really involves some of the tools that I've learned in my expertise, yes, you should pay me for my time, because none of you go to your doctors, your therapists, your lawyers, your coaches, your whatever. Nothing is free.
Mhm.
And that'll label me a little bit greedy. However, if you're in the veteran and military staff space, it's a little different, because there are organizations that will provide you that service. But if you really need that high touch one-on-one support that's outside of the scope of what they offer to you, I am okay if you choose to pay that, if it's within your budget and doesn't put you within a financial strain.
Mhm.
Right. So again, both sides of my mouth. Do I feel like you should? That's a personal preference. I can't tell you what to do. Have I used a coach? Yeah, one of them's on this call actually. But I got her when we were working together and she didn't even know she was coaching. She just happened to fall into my life at a time that everything was a poop storm, and we don't have to talk about it, but it was bad. It was
Right.
and because of that, we've been able to continue to build relationships. And as she TAs, I will send her things or resources, and like there's a relationship there.
Mhm.
When it comes to the resume itself, Corey said, I challenge you to send me the link to the job that you are looking at, for the sake of the podcast and livelihood. And please, God, don't let our marketing team come for me for this. But resumes are like buttholes. Everyone has one.
Mhm.
Some just smell worse than others. So the reason that's relevant is that as you're sending me your resume, if I don't have a position for you, then to me it's very black or white, right? So that even if you send me that job, we all have different opinions on what's important.
Mm-hmm.
She may care, Theta may care about the technical piece. Corey may care about the human resources piece of it. I may care about your strategic volunteering experience. So it really goes back to not just customizing, but aligning yourself with the companies you truly want to be at that value what you value for the sake of longevity.
That's
And
where I think it's so helpful to your point there of like getting the insight from the people that work there and
Yeah.
kind of know what people might look for. I mean, they're going to have objective opinions as well, but I think it's a good starting point.
yeah, and like I have a tool that I created, and not like this is not necessarily like the app. I mean, separate from the app for job seekers. It's literally a spreadsheet tool with metrics because I'm a metrics person that'll tell you as a job seeker how many people did I talk to, who are my networking contacts, where am I in the process. I build a CRM basically on a
Right.
spreadsheet.
Right.
And I use that to track, and that's free. I mean, that's just something I do. And I also keep notes on it. So for me, it's like staying organized, and with the coach piece, it's all personal preference and what you want to do. But like if I can't pay somebody on this call to sit with me like right now, and I can't afford $200 and $300 or whatever the going rate is, I'll send a Starbucks gift card or something around a birthday. I'll never forget. Like I won't. I just try to go back and thank them other ways. There's more value in time than there is sometimes in money. So I think it's both. I don't think anybody's wrong. I think it's just personal preference. But to Corey's point, you.
Yeah. Good stuff. This is really very valuable. Very valuable. I was gonna say something and I totally lost my train of thought. It was like,
While you think, I have a question for Lindsay. Is that your official slogan, or are you holding off on that?
What? Bridesmaids are like buttholes?
Yeah.
Stand-up hobby comedian Lindsay uses a fake name when she goes out and performs, stands by that slogan. CEO and founder of Empower Employee Lindsay Hallam, that's been in the space for a long time, would prefer to use more corporate language when she goes out and speaks. However,
Enjoy-
right. Well, I'm glad I get to meet both sides.
Yes, there are both sides. There is the version that we would like to, put out there that is a good, and then there's like the actual version of me, which I've learned can be very abrasive to some people. My personality type is not for everyone. My directness is not for everyone. I don't have a filter. It's not a fail or a flaw. It can be. But I just tell people up front, I'm like, listen, I'm not here to offend you. ADD is real. And like whatever comes out of my mouth, I am so sorry if I'm not medicated that day. Like there's
Right.
but I feel like that's something that's not talked about. It's a whole separate podcast, like neurologically, how personalities struggle in the workplace.
Yeah,
That's a whole-
absolutely. Yeah, I've been in a lot of different scenarios. What I was going to bring up was the military part of it, because you all are working a lot with military personnel transitioning out. Now, I've never been in the military. I'm a former firefighter, and I think that any resources or any benefits that can be extended to our veterans and our military personnel, it goes without saying. I mean, these people, yeah, you volunteer and you go in and you sign on the dotted line and you give your life over to the country, but it takes a certain, and I'm speaking from experience because it takes a certain kind of crazy person to volunteer for that, to put yourself, like I ran into burning buildings for 10 years. And I loved every freaking minute of it. But it's a normal, mentally sound person doesn't do that. You've got to be a really, really special kind of individual to go and do that. And we've seen so much sacrifice with our military. And I don't want to get into the politics of things because I think there's been so many conflicts that we've interjected ourselves into that we should have never lost a single life for any of them. I think it's a tragedy, but we did, and we're here, and we've got a ton of people that need help, and they gave what they could give for us, and I think it's time that everybody is conscious of that and is able to do whatever they can do. And the fact that you all make it a point to focus on the military community, I think is extremely admirable, and I appreciate it. But if there's certain benefits out there, resources out there that you can speak to, that if there are military persons watching this podcast, where could they go to look for help with resume writing, with, job searches and things like that?
I'm going to go first. So I'll just tell you right now, if we didn't cover it, you covered the gamut of military community today on the call, just as far as like who we work with and who we are. So like, we've got a dependent who works in her mom was on the Navy, right? Coast Guard, Navy, like just badass Navy mom, like I said it. And then Corey is former spouse, but still works in the community, wants a spouse, always a spouse. I'm both. I'm still married. Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I'm so
right.
sorry. I'm a yeah, she got
Congratulations.
More importantly, out with old, in with the new.
yeah, I'm an idiot because I remember when she was like, I got engaged. I was like, great, when's the wedding? I'm sorry. You're right. She's engaged. Okay. And then like I do both. So it's not like where can they go? It's like where can you not go? Like there are so many places and it's so overwhelming. And I'll just rattle off a couple. And if you guys miss or guys and gals people, if I miss anything, I'm just gonna try to do this in one fell swoop. Here we go. You can go too. Hiring Our Heroes, Veterati, Hire Heroes, ACP, Vets to Industry, Empower Employ,
That's in tech.
Vets in Tech. Yeah, see, somebody else take over. DOL Coach. Keep going.
Yeah, NAMVETS for National Association of Minority Veterans and Spouses. Your local workforce center has a DVOP, or what we consider essentially a veteran employment expert. There's regional ones. There's companies that have entire military teams that do military specific webinars with tips and tricks, like Amazon, like 50 Strong. If you're a student veteran or even a veteran at this point, they're expanding into veterans. That's a great connection. 50 Strong.
ServiceNow is the company that does that as well. That's where Herb works, and he actually leads the veteran transition program where they aid people in getting certifications. Fun fact, that's how we met. I was working to try and make changes through legislation for transition at that time, of the outcome being that if you participate in a skill bridge, it should be something beneficial to the person that's actually participating. So that's a piece of what they offer through the ServiceNow opportunities that are instructor led. So at the end of that, they have the ability to be, kind of level the playing field in the ecosystem for ServiceNow. So, and USO, I don't know if any of you mentioned that. That's another great resource.
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask either one or all of you if you could do me a huge favor when we're all done at some point. If you could email me a list of links or something, and then I can put that on in the description in the podcast, so that if any vets get on and see this, if they're not aware, they've got an easy place that they can click on the.
There's also my favorite function. We like to call it the Great Google, and you can find endless information on the Great Google.
Right.
I don't know if you
I'm sorry, I'm gonna die. So my new favorite thing, it's not new, it's just old, but since you said the Great Google, there is this website called Let Me Google That For You. And you can actually Google it for somebody and send them the replay. So sometimes if I'm feeling a little snarky, maybe not on LinkedIn, probably more on Facebook, you'll see without me, I will send you where do I go? And each individual installation has a Army Community Service program that has an employment readiness program. There's transition assistance programs that you have to go through called TAP and Soldier for Life and DAV and all the things. There's so many. We could write an entire. I think that's why at one point Vets to Industry started as a networking group. There's so many resources out there. He was trying to build like a one-stop shop library, and it just keeps growing. Every day there's new research.
Well, that's a good thing. That's and it's just out of my own ignorance that I didn't know that all these, because I'm not a veteran, I don't know that all these resources are out there, and I think that's wonderful that there are so many resources for vets that I could see how overwhelmed you got when I brought it up, but yeah, I really appreciate it. So the other thing that we talked about in the very, very beginning, and I'm not sure if I had started recording this or not, but the applicant tracking system, the AI stuff that's out there that they just scan, they just stick your resume in it and it looks for certain keywords. Are there a lot of recruiters doing that, or do you feel that most people are kind of like hands on? They're looking at a piece of paper,
Nowadays,
or they're actually
there's
reading reading the resumes themselves.
yeah, nowadays there's not a lot of companies doing that because there was obviously flaws in sending it through a computer system, right? We just got done talking about how you are your own best storyteller, and resumes are so different from person to person, so you can only imagine what a computer would do, right?
Right.
So not a lot of companies use them for that specific reason that you're thinking. There are plenty of ATSs out there for the recruiters tool, meaning, for instance, one of the top ones uses something called ISOMs. And ISOMs, you can filter your job that you have all these candidates in, and if you're looking for, and this goes with how many candidates are applying now, right? I have 2,800 candidates, but I need candidates that have a specific UX UI design certification. I can filter by that said certification or whatever skill I need, and it'll bring up only those people, and it'll give me a percentage of how much they connect.
Gotcha.
But the days of using ATS systems as an AI to say, hey, this person passes, there are still companies that do that, but they're very few and far between. It's mostly people eyes now at this point.
Okay, good. Well, that's
And
good.
I can talk on that and say, Tony, you may know or may not know that while recruiting is a component of what I do, I've been kind of focused in all things HR through growth strategy. And sometimes that means branding or messaging, or sometimes it's growth programs, sometimes unfortunately workforce reduction programs. So it kind of spans the entire industry. But the thing about ATS is there's often a need for change that does things on the back end to the rest of the system. So it's not really a consistent measure that a lot of organizations found value in that I worked with. From like to her point, to Theda's point, it was not providing. I saw some that would say this person was the car wash attendant for 10 years, and in actuality it was not their background. It was just reading it incorrectly. So you had to take the extra step, which then is a profitability loss
Right.
at that point. So there was just all kinds of different reasons that those systems were moved away from. The ones that are most commonly known and most commonly used, they don't. It's all coming into an actual system, and most systems have the function and capability to filter down and source through what you're specifically looking for. But I try to skim through them as best as possible, and look at each one as though it were my own application, just so that I can in good faith look someone in the face if they ever inquire about it, and let them know what my specific decision was as
Right.
well.
Right. So it gets back to the point of make your resume specific for that position, because if you don't, so the theme that I've heard since we started is a scalpel approach instead of a hammer when it comes to job searching. Because I know a lot of people, me included, you see all these jobs and you're like, oh, that one. Ooh, click apply. Oh, that's easy. Yeah, let me. Oh, I applied to 200 jobs today, and then you don't hear anything, and it's like, okay, well, that's not working.
So the reason why, especially at companies, right, is I literally had this conversation with my teammates today on a call that we had. You don't want to throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what hits, because that looks bad on you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're applying to 10, 20, 30 roles at one company, everybody sees that, every recruiter. It's not like there's a different system for each recruiter for each vertical.
Right.
You can't apply to anything. Any recruiter that has access to that system can see it. And if they see that you've applied for 60 roles, right, they're gonna be like this, and they're running the gamut, to your point, because of your specific background that you mentioned.
Right.
They're not going to take you seriously.
Yeah.
So you have to be intention. You have to have intention with what you're applying for. And the timing and the targeting. Like you should have, at least probably 4 or 5 versions of your resume. You should have a master. That way you can cut and paste and do what you need to do to make a targeted one.
Mm-hmm.
Just go to your master every time, keep updating it like you should your LinkedIn. And then you may have, like for you specifically, you may have a PM one. You may have a music industry one because of your background, right? But yeah, you should never apply unless you're brand new into corporate. You should never have just one resume and it's a master.
Very good point.
And things I need to know is, but why though? Like you said, you sound like my neighbor too, by the way. My neighbor came to me and she's like, I'm going to stay home and I'm going to apply to 200 jobs today. And I thought to myself, but why? Like,
Right.
I said it, I was like, again, I have no filter and whatever. I was just like, maybe not. You want to go get lunch instead? Because like, you've got to give people time to, process and do, it's a very methodical. She said, throw spaghetti at the wall. I say, spray and pray, or pray and spray, where you just like, I'm going to apply to all the things. No, like a very like strict left and right limit on what I'm looking for. So like if I ever leave Empower Employer, I get acquired, Lord willing, or whoever you believe in, I doubt you'll see me go back into, a C-level thing. I will not accept anything less than a consultant because I want to go do X. I may get a little crazy and wild and decide I want to be like a floral arranger and go back to school and like go work, but it'll be very strict on like left and right. If I wasn't working here, I would say I'm only going to do IT project management at Fortune 500 companies that accept the following values, that do whatever. You really have to know like what you want to do rather than spend, how many hours is that? 200 hours, like 200 jobs is like 8. That's a full-time job. And you're not doing anything but spinning your wheels and stressing yourself out.
Right.
Go for a walk, have a soda, like do something. That's just way too much. Like that stresses me out to hear you say. I'm like, effective job things should not take 200.
So redirecting my energy and my efforts after some research and even before I had the pleasure to speak with you all, I got to that point where it's like, okay, I'm going to pick the companies that I want to work for. And I want to look and see what's their culture like. What like you were saying, Corey, what are people saying? How do they like the company? And then target specific companies, even if they're not hiring.
Yeah, I can actually also jump on a little bit of what Lindsay said about like titles that we would or wouldn't accept. For myself, the last role I did was a little bit different from roles that I've held in the past. I've typically done consulting work most recently, but this last role I took was actually a talent acquisition strategy role, and I was working with a global team. And the reason I took that is because I identified this is an organization that I wanted to be a part of, and it was allowing me to pick up more skill sets. I'd had minimal global experience. But like Canada and Mexico, which doesn't really count.
Right. They're like neighbors, it's not really global.
So by doing so, it gave me so many additional facets to my abilities that it was worthwhile for me to be able to make that. So if you do make those changes from title, you dang well better be able to justify it. And to your point of it being a split-second review, I already know automatically somebody's going to go, why did she go from consulting to an individual contributor role? So I put a little asterisk there with the, actual explanation as to why to offset the thought for them. So if you do find yourself in that position, that's a way to, potentially navigate that.
That's a good point. Well, I've got just a couple of more questions and then we can wrap this up because I don't want to take up too much more of your valuable time. Recruiter ghosting.
I gotta
go. All right. Thanks for joining us. So I've heard so many people say, I applied for this position through this recruiting agency, and the recruiter called me and I had an hour-long conversation, screening with this recruiter, and they were all excited. They really felt like I was a good fit for the position, and then I never heard from them again.
But did you follow up though?
Well,
Sorry, Dana.
yeah,
Take,
yeah.
take it away.
Even so, even the follow ups, email, phone call, text message, whatever. I mean, I've done it myself, and gotten absolutely no response back at all, and I'm like, okay.
I have
Well,
a two different answer for this.
so so one, I'd like to know if you can speak to this, a reason for it, and then if it, and then if you could speak to recruiters on how to handle that situation, like professionally handle that situation.
Yes. Okay. Where do I start? All right. Here's the thing that people need to understand. Okay. And this is by no means an excuse, because I am very big. Anybody I ever train or talk to, follow up is key, right? However, again, to the point we were talking about earlier, there is one of me and thousands of y'all.
Yeah.
That's just the recruiting aspect of it. That's not LinkedIn. That's not speaking engagements. That's not working. That's just working my recs, right? It is your job, and I'm gonna try not to get too spunky.
No, it's okay. No, we need to hear it. We need to hear it. People need to hear it.
It is your job as the recruiter to bring back all of the points that we are as the candidate. I'm so sorry. It is your job as the candidate to bring in all of these other points that we just mentioned, to build that relationship, to follow up, and to realize that I am not your personal job seeker. Okay, I have 1,000 of you I have to manage, 6, 7. I had 60 recs when I worked at Amazon. Like, it's insane. So if you're, and that's that piece. So it's not my job to follow up with you, although I should as a recruiter. You also have to understand my lens and where I'm sitting, right? The second part of that is, if you do follow up and you're still not hearing back, you should follow up more than once. Like, it shouldn't just be like, hey, checking in. Like, you should follow up more than once, right? But if you're following up 3, 4 times and you're not getting answered, you don't want to work for them anyway. Let's just say that. Okay. It is what it is. Recruiters are human. I will be the first to email you back and say, I'm so sorry, you went to my spam for some reason. That's happened before, right? But also understand that recruiters are people too, and they've got you times 10,000 going on.
Yeah.
So if they don't follow up, it's for multiple reasons. The rec got canceled. They loved you so much. I see this a lot in junior recruiters, where they get so excited about a candidate, and then they get the no, and they don't know how to handle that conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And it's hard to say, oh, I told you this, but the hiring manager said no.
Yeah.
But that comes with experience with recruiters. A lot of junior recruiters do that. So it's just understanding that, yeah, it sucks, and yeah, it's not okay to not follow up. But if for some reason you're following up, you're not hearing back, it wasn't meant to be. It's probably not somewhere you want to work anyway.
And I can see that being a difficult conversation if you feel like, you had a great conversation with a candidate, and they really, it was like you got their hopes up, and then you went, and what you were looking at and what the HR manager is looking at are two different things. The red apple that actually wasn't red.
Yeah.
and
Corey's point,
and then the recruiter gets that feedback. Now, how do you deliver that bitter pill to the candidate? It's easier just to not reach back out to them.
I have to chime in and say, I think it all comes back to, and this comes with finesse and experience, you own your process as a recruiter. It is your opportunity from inception to tell the candidate what to expect throughout the entire process.
Yeah.
And if you know you're slammed with a ton of recs that are getting a slew of applicants, communicating on the front end of what the candidate can expect and say, hey, look, I'm going to do my very best to get this in front of a hiring manager, on the off chance that they don't see there being progression for your, opportunity. If you don't hear back from me, then you will eventually get a follow-up email from our system, and we encourage you to continue to look for things. But by saying that on the front end, they already know, okay, it could stop here, and I'm okay with that.
Right.
But it's when they articulate that there's something different that's going to happen, that expectation becomes hinged upon it, which is, part of the entire candidate experience.
Right.
Good organizations will have good processes And to Theta's point, good organizations that you want to be a part of care very much about their brand and reputation that's being delivered as a part of their candidate experience. And there are people like myself that are paid good money to come and make sure that that's a good candidate experience. So I
Right.
can tell you there are a lot of people that are really hyper focused on that right now. But I have to say, pushing back to, putting it at the front of the conversation, letting people know what to expect, that's going to solve 99
Yeah.
pieces of the problem. But also, when you have to deliver that news, again, put yourself in that candidate's position. If you were to receive that information, what information would you want to hear?
Mhm.
Most often, really want solid feedback. Don't just give them, I'm sorry they didn't select you. You can say, I'm sorry they did not see the transferable relevance to that role. I would recommend, rewriting your resume next time. Just a quick snippet. It doesn't have to be anything, lengthy, but I think that those are ways that make that conversation that much easier. And then, quite frankly, just you develop a thick skin, I guess, of like, being able to comfortably have those conversations,
Right.
and that there's an opportunity. And it's actually a great networking opportunity for you to build your passive candidates. Matt Quick, who was supposed to be on the call,
Mhm.
I declined. I had to turn him down, call him and tell him, hey, bud, you went through, all your rounds. You were a fantastic cultural fit, not the guy for this job. And gave him very specific experience reasons why, and told where I saw his strong suits and where I would recommend that he continue to press in
Mhm.
ways that he could kind of, get back in there and try it again. He tried it again, landed it that time.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're building your passive pool as well in those conversations. So not being fearful of that, and pressing in through volunteerism and helping people find pathways similar to with offboarding. I think right now we're seeing a huge development of that, of people wanting to know what's next and have a little bit of leadership involvement or personal involvement. And I think it's a great way as a recruiter to build your personal brand.
Right.
And
So Theta
quick
raised her
qualifying
hand.
yeah, and I think both of them did a great job describing that. But I'm gonna throw a bomb in the middle of all this for the job.
Of course.
What I do. Some companies don't allow for feedback.
That's great.
Some companies
Okay.
are not allowed for feedback. It is a legal thing, and as much as and I've heard it, and it hurts my feelings because, like, as a job seeker, I'm like, just tell me I suck or whatever. But
Right.
I mean, the recruiter should tell you that on the front end.
Yeah.
The-
Yeah. So the
Right,
so the takeaways for recruiters, if y'all are listening, the two main takeaways that I've
Sorry, y'all.
got from this conversation is set realistic expectations and, when applicable, provide constructive feedback.
Right.
yeah, and that's
And
fair.
two-
Go ahead.
If I can just add real quick, Lindsay, I'm so sorry. For the job seekers, because you actually took one of the ones I was going to say, Tony, which is let them know ahead of time that you're not the final decision maker at this point, right?
Mhm.
But for the job seekers, understanding that if they don't tell you the recruiting process in the initial phone screen or connection, ask.
Yeah.
It's perfectly acceptable for you to ask, what can I expect next? What is the process? All those things. And then also understanding as a job seeker that the follow up that we were talking about earlier needs to be appropriate.
Right.
3 emails within 6 hours is not 3 times a follow up. You have to understand, to Lindsay's point, it takes some time. So
Mhm.
give it a couple of days in between follow ups. Following up every hour is not acceptable, and that will be a real quick way for you to get dispoed and
Yeah.
declined.
You're going to get red flagged.
Right.
Yeah, there's a
Great.
nope that she has on her email box. She just hits nope, and then you disappear into the abyss.
Never to be heard from again.
Yeah, I mean, everything that they said is completely accurate. I don't have anything else to add. It just kills me because I think going into it, if you're a newer job seeker, or a new candidate or even old candidate, there's this attitude of, ATSs are the devil, right? They're the reason I can't get the job. The recruiters are evil. Nah, man, these recruiters kill themselves. They go high. Like, there's a reason that I stopped the staffing portion of what we do here. And it's because, like, I love every single person that comes through the gate, and it kills me it literally physically hurts me and makes me ill to hear that candidate doesn't have what it takes, because I want to turn around and be like, oh yeah, well the candidate who I work with says blah blah
Right.
blah. It's just that accepting that they're not that match, and then having to deliver that news is like the worst, especially when you've got candidates nowadays that are desperate for that job or the next move because they got families and bills to pay and like whatever. And I don't want to be painted as the antichrist, quite frankly. Like, it wasn't on me. Like, there's
Right.
so much advocacy that goes on behind closed doors that job seekers don't get to hear about. And so the recruiter's your friend. And you know what? Recruiters switch jobs. And I've had people that told me no at one company and then like we'll get to another company, be like, I remember you. I hated that hiring manager. I'm back. I got this job. You're perfect. Let's go. And it just starts that whole thing. So I just, thought I'd touch on that a little bit. Don't demonize your recruiter. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, don't date your coworkers. Don't hate your recruiter. Like, don't do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know that if at first you don't succeed, try again. I did a whole post about it. It was like, please hit me up because I legit may have just forgotten. It is totally possible I may have just forgotten.
Right. Yeah, like when I asked everybody to send me their bios, I'm like, okay, Lindsay, boom, she was Johnny on the spot, got hers right away, and then I waited a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I put out a little friendly reminder. Wait another day. Okay, I got Theta's. Okay, put another reminder out, and then Corey was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you for reminding me." And I was like, "That's that's productive follow up."
We have a blended household of 4 teenagers, 2 of which are in their senior year, so there's a lot of navigating
drama.
We have one that's not yet driving but works, so there's coordinating rides to here, there, from, and then we have our own things going on that we volunteer in the community with, and also very much a part of speaking alongside Herb and his attendances as well. So there's so many moving pieces just in my personal life, and I actually feel like my life's pretty chill compared to most people I know. Because we don't have travel sports because, we're past all that stuff.
Right.
But I think if you just realize they're real humans.
Yeah. Everybody has lives. Everybody has things going on. And
my daughter just had an appendectomy a couple weeks ago. So we spent some time in the hospital. It's like those things are behind the scenes that you don't see, So just knowing that, like, we want to follow up and we want to, have those conversations, but sometimes we just have a lot going on or forget. So great.
Yeah. Be kind. Be kind to each other.
Yeah.
It's, we're all in this thing together and nobody's getting out alive. So let's just do the best we can. But from somebody that had zero experience with recruiters before I started this project management role, this contract role that I just finished up, I didn't know what to expect. And I had a really pleasant working experience with my recruiter to the point where he was very responsive. He would call me on like a Saturday. Hey, just wondering, how'd your week go? What was it like? Do you like it? How's it going? Keep me posted. And we became friends, and we're still friends. And he wasn't even an IT recruiter. The project was so big, the company pulled all their recruiters in to ramp up for this project. And he got pulled in to do IT recruiting. So I can't use him as a recruiter because he's not recruiting in my field. But I've made some friends through him in the same company that are IT recruiters, and I just every couple of times a month I'll send them a little email or a text message and be like, hey, I'm just want to make sure I'm still on your radar. But I have no experience at all. So I think there are a lot of people in the marketplace who are like me that don't know what to expect, don't know what that expectation is, don't know what that relationship is supposed to look like, and this is gonna be really valuable for people to get to hear it from right from the professionals. This is what we do every day. This is, we care about people. It, like Lindsay was saying, I could see the anguish on your face when you were telling me that story about, having to deliver the bad news and how hurtful that is. And, if everybody realizes that we all have emotions, we all have feelings, we're all human. I have this kind of tongue in cheek saying people suck, prove me wrong kind of thing. But because we're all human, and you're going to, if you set your expectations so high where you're always going to be disappointed, you're going to live a disappointed life. So if you can lend some grace and just be kind, and to Corey's point, you don't know what kind of day they're having. You don't know what personal stuff they're going through, or if they just got chewed out by their boss, or they had a fight with their spouse that day, or their kids just being a butthole, whatever. Everybody's going through something. Just be kind. Just be kind.
And I think we need to talk about one misconception, I think, about the recruiting, because you mentioned somebody who's never interacted with a recruiter, or what is commonly referred to as a headhunter, which I hate because I'm not going out and like shooting
I never
people.
liked that.
I'm
I
not
never liked that term
sharpshooting
either.
anymore.
I'm glad we call them recruiters now.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, I still hear it pretty commonly, like, I don't want to work with a headhunter. Listen, I want to work with any type of hunter personally, like
Right.
job hunter, killer, whatever that is. And so as far as from that perspective, I think there's a misconception too that like the recruiter themselves get some sort of, commission, or they get some sort of like reward for doing their job. Most companies have stepped away from that commission-based recruiting. There are companies that do get like referrals if you get hired, but only if you stay for 30 days or whatever that process is. So these recruiters are killing themselves for like $500 recruiting fees. It makes zero sense. Like, listen, I love you too much to really, as a person, like to care about $500 or whatever that amount is. So I think getting educated with the recruiting process as a candidate is where I was going with that, and learning the misconceptions that, yeah, I'll talk highly of a company because I love it. I work here, but I'm not trying to sell you a job. In today's market, it's a candidate's market, but with layoffs, it's also an employer choice.
Yeah.
Like it's a free for all. It's a zoo. I mean, right now it's survival of the fittest, I guess is how I would say that. So I just want people to be aware that, don't call me a headhunter. I don't get paid like based on, if I got 30% of your 6-figure salary every time I hired somebody, I would not be working for.
Right.
I would not have
I would not be at the company that I'm at today. I'd be doing my own thing. So I just wanted to cover that and like touch on it, because I've heard it before. I've heard it from the veteran community. I've heard it from my brother. Called this morning, same thing. I was like, I don't want to work with them. They're going to get a cut of my money. No, we don't. No, you don't.
I wish I got a
Even if they did,
I busted my butt for that. You get
100% is zero is still zero.
I mean, either way, so I'll leave it alone, but I just wanted to touch on that and let you finish up a couple of the other questions that you had. But I thought it was worth touching on, thank God that we're not hunting.
Yeah.
Lindsay, if I could add to that point,
Yeah,
Tony,
sure.
conception is that they're getting a piece of their money. From what I've worked with organizations, it's a higher percentage that they allocate for roles that are going to be placed by agencies that charge a percentage. So it's not even money that would even be on the radar
Right.
if they brought in without agency support. So it's an overage and above and beyond. So that's great call out there, Lindsay, too, that people have conception.
All right. So let's wrap this up with one final question, suggestion, and we'll start with Theda. Your best tip for people out there just trying to land their next role?
network. That's the only way you're going to get it.
Okay, Lindsay?
Be patient and be kind and network.
And Corey?
Stay laser focused.
I echo everything that the two of them shared. And then, of course, making sure that resume really matches the job description of what you're applying for.
Perfect. Well, you all have been absolutely phenomenal. I personally feel a lot more prepared, and I feel like I've got a lot of arrows in my quiver now, that I can go out with some confidence, and I feel like I've made some good connections and some good friends that we can maybe reconvene in a month or so and kind of see where everybody is, and maybe have some success stories with some people. I love to talk more about exactly what you do as far as your specific roles. But we're well over an hour into this. I was going to try to keep it to 30 minutes, but there's
Not with
just
these girls.
there's well, there's just too much good stuff to talk about, and you guys are just been phenomenal. So I'm going to sign off here. If you just want to hang on with me just for a few minutes, I'm going to end the recording here and then try to get things wrapped up. Wow, what an awesome conversation. Well, thank you for joining us on this roundtable discussion. If you have any comments, any questions, please leave them in the comment section. If you enjoyed this content, please like it, share it across your platforms and your network, and hopefully we can get some more of this content out for you. Thank you again for joining me on the Tony Vanek Show.